Where do we go from here? It is a question that many Americans have been forced to ask themselves recently. It is also a question that many Americans have already asked themselves, and yet we seem to forget the answer. In truth, our current situation is not the first time Americans have been forced to ask about our path in the future, and this likely will not be the last. But by looking back through our history, we can find the answer to our dilemma. During his time as our president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt once said, "The point in history at which we stand is full of promise and danger. The world will either move forward toward unity and widely shared prosperity, or it will move apart." The nation that President Roosevelt and all Americans had found themselves in at that time was a dark, miserable shadow of the glory it had seen after the First World War. With poverty and economic instability the norm of the day, and war looming around the world. At this moment, I imagine many Americans ask themselves the same question that we ask ourselves today. Where do we go from here? In response to the pressures and threats of their time, Americans bonded through their shared hardships, and together, through the actions of our courageous soldiers, we were able to set the world free from the tyranny of the Axis powers. And through the hard work of the average American, we were able to lift ourselves out of the Great Depression. We know their answer. They, as Americans, united and moved forward toward the path of liberty and leadership. We collected our efforts and put them towards one unified goal, and through our combined effort, we achieved the might to set ourselves free of the bonds we had faced. Not long after the conclusion of the Second World War, we were faced with the question that dawns upon us in our modern time as the newest threat to world peace and freedom arose in the form of the Soviet Union. Where do we go from here? We know the path that Americans, as one unified people, chose at that moment. They chose the path of liberty and leadership, and they moved forward together. We built our nation into the stalwart defender of liberty, and we took the role as leaders of the free world without doubt or hesitation, vowing to protect freedom wherever it prospers. And to ensure we continued moving forward, we defended this freedom not only in our own borders, but around the world. President Ronald Reagan once said, "We must not break faith with those who are risking their lives on every continent, from Afghanistan to Nicaragua, to defy Soviet aggression and to secure rights which have been ours from birth. Support for freedom fighters is self-defense." We chose the path that Americans always had, and together, we kept the world safe from Soviet expansion until its collapse in 1991. Yet one thing remained the same: we moved forward. We have asked ourselves this question a myriad of times now across our history, and our answer has always been the same. In the wake of the attacks on September 11th, 2001, we asked ourselves, where do we go from here? Our answer: we chose the path of liberty, and we moved forward. As chaos and war unfolded in the American colonies in 1776, we asked ourselves, where do we go from here? Our answer: we chose the path of liberty, and we moved forward. During the bloodiest war in American history, as our nation tore apart at the seams during the Civil War, we asked ourselves, where do we go from here? Our answer: we chose the path of liberty, and we moved forward. President Abraham Lincoln once said, "I walk slowly, but I never walk backward." We know the answer to our current dilemma. It is the same answer it has been for all of our history. And this is simply our turn to answer the calling that all Americans have faced. We cannot afford to stand still, and we must do what we have always done. We must unite as one people toward the path of liberty and leadership. And when someone asks, where do we go from here? We know the answer. We move forward together.
And at this time, I'm happy to present Colby with a certificate for first place in the Voice of Democracy and a check for $500. It doesn't happen very often, but I get to call the commander and president up again because we had 2 district winners.
presentation here for you. Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States and its Auxiliary, Certificate of Merit. Colby Thompson, second place in recognition of excellence in the Voice of Democracy contest. Presented by District 21, sponsored by Mount Wolf VFW and Auxiliary 2493. Sandy Brenner, Roger Miller.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Spin around here, we get you right. And then we have a check for $900.